What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Flatbush Roundtable, and today we have a special guest, a buddy of mine, Omas.
Hello.
Already cracking up on my introduction, but yeah, here we go. So today's topic we want to talk about is failure, right? So, Omas, just a little background on our channel. We like to talk about emotional intelligence, right? So there's a lot of topics that cover that. How we learn to manage and express our emotions in different categories. Fitness, work, all kinds of stuff, right? So today I really want to tackle like the importance of failure in being, whether you're an adult, young boy, it doesn't matter, just the importance of failure and all the things that encompass, I can't even say the word, but yeah, right?
Or accomplish.
But yeah, first of all, like, how do you see failure?
Failure is the building block for resiliency and, if you're lucky enough, success. I believe failure is one of those things in life that can't be pushed under the rug. It has to be taken into account. But it also depends on your circumstance and where you live, or what kind of lifestyle you have. I know we've always talked about people living in different realities. So, like, if you're in a setting where failure isn't accepted, you're not going to be able to use failure to grow. It's something to be afraid of, something to be, you know, disgusted at. But I think for most people, failure is a good thing. Uh, One of the things a lot of people need to understand is life isn't perfect. People aren't perfect. Situations aren't going to be perfect. So, things are going to mess up. Things aren't going to go exactly according to plan. And when that happens, that's literally failure. So I always think the most important thing is how people learn from the failure. Nobody's going to learn from it perfectly, but I feel like taking the time to reflect is probably the most important thing somebody could do in the face of failure.
Okay.
Like old man on the porch rant. I hate how social media influencers show their success without showing the failures that got them there. I think that people can learn more from a person's failure than they can from their success, because it kind of gives people like a warning or kind of instructions on what to do in certain situations. Kind of like how parents always tell their kids, hey, this is what's going to happen if you do this, because they're talking from experience. So showing failure as an experience to other people can benefit the other person, because they can see, hey, this is what XYZ this person did, and this is why it happened, so they can learn to try and avoid those mistakes. But failure is natural. I don't think it should be shied away from, and I think it should be embraced more by people.
It's funny you say that because as you say that, I'm thinking about all the times they used to show us bloopers on television.
Yeah.
And people always think of it as a joke, but you never realize that's really how much times they fail to execute that scene.
Yeah.
Right? So that's actually very interesting. So, in the topic of emotional intelligence, one of the reasons I bring it up is like, we all know, especially, with living our lives, we all know we can learn a lot from failure, right? Try again, you'll eventually succeed, or you run out of opportunity, either or. But what I specifically like to, I guess, not focus on, but I guess want to tackle today is like, how do you recover from failure? And emotional, think about it, right? You're out there, maybe you just graduated from college or something, or you just got your certification. You out here looking for jobs. We all know the job market is tough, right? That's beating against your soul.
It all depends on what kind of support you have. I'm lucky enough to be blessed with a fantastic wife who, when I was going through my transition period from customer service into IT, applying for all these jobs after getting my certification, going through all these interviews, getting to the final interview, just for them to tell you, hey, you look great, but you don't have the experience. And it's kind of that conundrum anybody who search for a job. It's like they want to hire somebody who's new, but they want the person to have all the experience in the world, which just don't
Yeah.
work. So having a support system to keep you grounded after each failure helps. I think it's hard if you don't have that support. And it's also kind of like how built you are for resiliency. Like I think.
So sorry, when you say built, you're talking about like upbringing, location, nature.
I think
nurture?
just your life experiences.
Okay.
And I would like for more people to be more resilient, but that's just not the world we live in. I think that each failure that you can build, like kind of like you can build upon each failure, and I think that building is the key to seeing how you grow from it.
Okay.
So like with the example for job markets, I think you can just keep going until you can't anymore. And that's different for each person, but if you have a good foundation and base, and when I mean foundation, it could be friends, family, immediate partner, like having some kind of like, because you can only do so much for yourself until you can't anymore, just out of sheer tiredness and such. So I think having support helps build that resiliency.
And forgive me if I'm getting too personal, but you were still working at the time while you were looking for that, right? So it's not like you were just sitting around going to 5 job interviews a day. You had to navigate working a retail job and then looking to start this career of yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What was that like?
It was excruciatingly hard because a lot of failure when it comes to, at least in this example, like searching for jobs, it will question your work.
Okay.
And I think that can be very hard and detrimental because I would say most people now have very high self-esteem, self-confidence, and going through the market or going through these interviews over and over to kind of just hear you're not good enough. You know, at the end of the day, that's what it literally comes down to. You're not good enough for the position. It can wear on you no matter how optimistic, how confident you are.
You can be the most confident person on the planet.
Yeah.
And I think with work, you don't know who you're competing against either, right?
No. And the thing that a lot of people don't tell you, which I'm telling everybody listening, it's as much as it should be what you know and what you can do, it's more about who you know and what they can connect for you. And it could be, for me, that was the most conflicting thing. Because I was raised that your hard work, your dedication, and your, I guess, resiliency to do the task given to you will be seen by others, and therefore you will get the opportunities that you think that you've worked towards. But that's not necessarily the case. Like knowing the right person in the situation kind of leaves that door open, and that can be very conflicting in a sense because it's like in your head you're like, you know, I can do all these tasks, and if I can just get the opportunity, I can show them. But if the company already has in mind, like, hey, you know, I'm going to give this person a shot because of X, Y, Z, it may not be on merit. So I think that's definitely the hardest thing.
It's interesting you say that because I think I'd like to think that I got my last job on my merit, but in reality is I wouldn't have found this job without a recruiter. Reached out to her, sat down.
Literally same thing.
Yeah, I feel like recruiters are a big deal. I don't remember ever getting a job off of just going out there and looking.
And I guess like kind of give insight into my story. The reason I got this job was, or the reason I'm in this job now is at my old job, I was doing the work of a senior position without the pay because the person passed away due to a medical condition.
Okay.
So maybe after 6 months of doing like the senior position job, the position officially became open. So everybody in the department outside of my immediate director was advocating for me to apply for the position because they were like, "Yo, you do the job anyways. It should be a open case. Like you're the most qualified person because you've been doing the job." So I applied. It took me 3 months to get the position. And it was frustrating because like everybody I've talked to said those kind of things, they try to move quickly internally because, it just makes things a lot easier on HR and other departments and stuff like that. They don't have to do as much work because you're already in the system. Like there's a lot of things behind the scenes that makes internal hiring more preferred than external hiring.
Now, forgive me for being that guy. Do you think that they take advantage of you? Because it sounds like
most definitely
you did 9 months of work.
Most definitely.
Right?
Most companies will do that. So it's an ironic story because when I shout out to Perscalis, IT bootcamp that got me the skills to get into the career field I'm doing now.
Okay.
We had to set up a LinkedIn account. And when we set up a LinkedIn account, I was getting spammed by bots. So in my head, I was like, nobody's real, it's just bots trying to do things. So my wife took a look at my LinkedIn account. At the time, I was in this influx of trying to get the promotion or apply for the senior position and not hearing anything about it. She took a look at my inbox and was like, these are real people trying to recruit me for it. I was like, what you mean? They're not bots? She's like, no, they're people trying to recruit you for a job. So she helps me draft up a response because I kind of ghosted them. I didn't.
Yeah. They're used to that.
Yeah.
Because they're used to reaching out.
Yeah. So she drafted a response and I reached out to one of the recruiters and he reached out to me and he was like, why do you want this position? And I was like, I don't feel like my worth is being realized at where I'm working. And, he took my information, put in my application. I got my first interview. The interview that got me my current position in whole took 1 week.
Yeah.
Versus the 3 months that it took me on my old job. So, like, I think I had the interview with my help desk manager at that time, one of the senior colleagues. Then the next interview was with the executive director and director. That was 2 days later. Then I had the final interview with the CIO. Like 3 days later, then I got the offer. And like, it was very telling because it was just like, if a place really wants you, they'll show the initiative and do what they want to do to get you. So like kind of back on the failure thing, like I think that transition in the 3 months definitely felt like a failure to a certain degree because I kept questioning like, am I not good enough? And that's kind of like what will happen when you're transitioning from job to job and just being in the job market. But like I said, I had a foundation with good friends, my wife, my family. Shout out to my brothers, like, keeping me grounded and keeping me motivated. So I think when it comes to this topic, like having that support is probably one of the bigger things that nobody really talks about for being able to grow and learn from the failures that you'll go through life with.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that. I think when we're like working hard and pushing forward, we don't think about how good and how strong our support system is really. Like for example, my mom. She helped put me through school, right? Being raised by a single mom wasn't easy, but helped pay for college the best that she can. Now, when it came to some life decisions, she didn't always agree with everything I did.
Yeah.
Right? With my career choices, where I had to move and stuff like that. But it worked out. Some of the decisions I made got me to where I am. But does that mean that she didn't support me? No, that's just her being concerned because I'm entering a territory that she didn't fully understand. And I don't think I fully appreciated that until I hit my 30s.
Yeah.
Because I'm always
most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Because I'm always like, Mom, why you not with me? Why you not supporting me?
It's crazy how my mom used to, I forget what she used to say. She always used to say, you know what, you'll understand as you get older. And I always used to brush that off until I actually got older and understood. like the great irony of life that nobody really talks about is that parents don't always have like an exact blueprint to raising kids and stuff like that. They can only hope for the best, and they can only share their experiences onto their kids, so so they can learn from their experiences and avoid the failure they hit, to give them the experience to give that advice. So I always shout out to my mom and dad. They always, parents who are always nagging and telling you, don't do this, the kind of thing. They're not, most times they're not doing that out of a place of like superiority or whatnot. Yeah. They're saying it because I've experienced these things. They're not great. I don't want you to go through them, so take my advice.
Yeah, so. And even though like they experience it at a different time, so you might end up yielding a different result. But I get it 100% because it took me a while to register that my mom was raised in Jamaica. I was born there, but I wasn't raised there. You were raised right? Same for you. Your parents was probably raised in Africa, right? Yeah. But you are raised there, like me. So imagine thinking, hey, I'm going to raise my child exactly how I was raised there in a different country, different system, different rules, culture, different everything, right? It's ridiculous. So you don't really appreciate that. So I definitely see that my mom failed a lot. But it doesn't like I understand it more. Yeah. Right? And because you can't, parents don't see the future. So it's very interesting. But one of the things when it comes to failure is I wanted to touch on as well is the difference between quitting and running out of opportunity. Because I feel like when a lot of people fail, they feel like they're not good enough. Right? It just beats at your spirit. Yeah. But certain things is only limited chances, right?
I also think self-awareness goes into that, because a lot of people don't have the self-awareness sometimes, like to know, all right, this is outside of something I can do, and be flexible enough to change their perspective to try and do something, maybe not the exact same goal they were trying to achieve, but something adjacent.
But don't you think that's tough though? Because when you say, "Hey, this is outside of my capability," that's like kind of telling someone that they shouldn't believe in themselves no more. I'm not saying
no. I understand. It's like you can't like it's two contradicting ideas that has to be balanced. You have to understand that yes, quote unquote, you are capable of doing anything, but the other hand is you're really not capable of doing anything because there's certain limitations. Like if you go to like height difference, in a sense, like a guy in the NBA who's like 6'11" is able to do certain things a guy who might be 5'6" can't do just because of height. That's just not like you can try, you can do, but there are just certain things that you can't do.
Physical, actual limitations.
They're actual, and being able to know what those limitations are and guide and go around it, I think is important. So I think in that sense, I think it's all on the person, but I also think a lot of people run away too quickly when it comes to the idea of failure. Like, because you're gonna fail, and I guess at some point you gotta understand maybe I can't do it, and you have to readjust. And I think that it's easy for me to say what my experience is, but if you're younger, it's a lot harder to do.
Yeah.
But I also think that also goes back to the idea of having the support to kind of guide you to the realization that if this is maybe something I can't do and I have to pivot, or maybe like you said, the opportunity just isn't there and you got to pivot from there. So I think self awareness plays a huge factor into coming to that conclusion. So
Okay.
um, yeah, I think the more you fail, the more you get self aware of what you're capable of doing and what kind of limits you're able to, you know,
Yeah.
limits you're able to push.
I think that's very important because, like, when it comes to the limits, not just physical limitations,
Mental limitations.
I also think learning about the opportunity. Like, for example, one of the things I know is there's only a certain amount of times you can take the ambulance driver test, EMT test,
Yeah.
right? I think the limit is 4.
Oh,
You fail all 4 times, you can never do it again in
Yeah.
your life, right? Is it quitting or did you try every time you did it? I
Yeah.
feel like. But another limit is, right, if you're young, you live with your parents, you try the social media thing, only 10% of people on social media actually become monetized, right? And it's usually out this 10%, it usually takes them about 3 years.
And that's
So then, like, hey, when you gotta become
sorry.
independent, you have time
For me,
this?
it's my like the old man on the porch thing because it's like what a lot of people don't kind of understand is the failure behind the success that people because it's like I think
But for me, I understand what you're saying. But for me, I guess I want to know that if you tried and you tried your best and you fail and you don't make it, how can you be okay with that? Because some things like that put people self doubt, depression.
it's support, but it's also you have to. It's kind of like I said. You also have to know not everything is going to be perfect.
Just like not everyone could be rich.
Yeah, or not like you have to have that self awareness. So I think, like you said, when it gets to that point where you put everything on the line and you didn't achieve the goal you want to achieve, that sucks. It will break most people and depression, anxiety, self doubt, and all that. If you don't go through that, if you hit that point,
Yeah.
that's a little weird because that's natural. Because like it's like all your effort felt in vain. How do you recover from it? How do you kind of pivot? How do you try and do all these stuff to grow from it? So it's a lot easier said than done. So yeah.
What do you say to the guy? And I'm giving you an example now. What do you say to the kid who wants to be a basketball or football star one day? They're the best in their school or their district, right? They're one of the top 10. Now they get a chance to go professional. And all of a sudden, out of everyone there that's going professional, they're like top 100. Right? Now they realize, oh, I was in a small pond. Now I'm in a big pond and I'm not as good as I thought I was. What do you say to the person that made it that far and didn't make it? And didn't cross the finish line? Didn't make it to the NBA or the NFL or the pros or whatever they're doing? Right? Because they made it farther than most people.
Yeah.
They made it farther than their town, but now they got to go back. What do you say to that person?
Like off the top of my head, the harsh thing to say is there's always going to be someone better than you at whatever you do. Like that's why competition at the 0.01% of whatever field or thing people do is so fierce. And I don't sucks. I don't have anything. I guess it would say it sucks. Validate their feelings. Don't try to sugarcoat it or tell them. Like I don't want to give somebody false hope, but I also want to ground them and like, all right, what do you feel would be the best? Like, what have you learned from this that you can apply to other things? Because if you're that good, if you get like, if you're a top 100 player and you know you got to be top 50, you know, you could go into coaching or you could go into other avenues within that field because it's not like the talent and experience you have is useless. It was obviously enough to get to a certain place. It just wasn't where you wanted to go. So maybe you can imbue that experience or take that experience and have people learn from it, do better than you could. Because that's the only thing I think, just as human beings, we can do is just pass knowledge on. Because not everybody is going to be great at something, but if they have enough knowledge to view what they know to somebody else who can be better at them, that's all you can do.
Do you think it's the parents' fault? Do you think they've sold? And here's what I mean. I'm not trying to blame parents, but do you feel that they've sold children or young people dreams and giving them the feeling of, if I don't do this, I'm not successful? For example, right? Like, all right, in my professional career, I'm an accountant. You're an IT person, right? I didn't have my mom was wanting me to work in an office, but she didn't know exactly what I wanted to be. But I didn't have a lot of people, or at least I don't see a lot of people saying you could be a good accountant one day, you could be a good IT person one day, and I don't see that a lot. You know what I mean? I see a lot of people saying you could be a star though, you can be a great player, you can be a great this, you can play a great that.
It's not because it's not flashy and it's not as exciting, and I think like Old Man on the Porch Rant, that's also kind of the problem with social media.
Yeah.
And like they glorify the famous and such, but a lot of the things that people don't realize, like plumbers, electricians, these trades that may not be as flashy, are just as important to society and make good enough money that people can be well off if they put the time and energy into that craft. So I think I don't blame parents for investing in what their kids want to do. So if I had a kid, my kid was like, I want to be a soccer star and this, that, and the third. And they were wholeheartedly set into it in the sense that, how as a kid you have a million different dream jobs and, like one day it's just kind of whimsical. If they're like very passionate about this one thing, I'm gonna feed into their passion. As a parent, that's all you can do. And if it doesn't work out, you just gotta be there to kind of navigate them to what's next, as it wasn't a guarantee. So, no, I don't blame parents who invest time and energy into their kids' dreams. Like I think that's unfair to say.
Well, yeah, that's why I asked.
Yeah, but I also think it's unfair to hold these out of reach kind of things to such a high standard versus these jobs or these career paths that are more obtainable to more people to provide them better living circumstances and better potential for love, growth, or success.
Yeah.
So
I just feel like we aren't sold the average life. We're always sold the great life.
Yeah.
You either got to be great or you're going to be slow. And I feel like that's an issue.
Yeah, because it's very extremist in a sense. It's like if you're not like six figures with a car or two cars and a mansion, you're a failure. Like what? Like how does that work? Because it's like that. If you it's what 10%. It's a very low percentage of people who hit that tier of success. But there's another tier underneath that, which is very much attainable. And
well, we say it's success, but success is different to everyone, right?
That's true.
You can make $60,000 a year and consider yourself successful. Right?
I mean, it also
your bills and
if you be a responsible adult, if you're able to enjoy life, I feel like what a lot of people don't talk about, or at least like if I was younger, I wish it's like life is very hard. Well, not true. My parents said that for God knows how long. But it's like life will life. And you have to navigate it the best way you can and not everything that you thought was ideal may not have been ideal as you grow older, and you have to figure out what your goal is at the end of the day. So that's different for it varies for every person. But I also think the social media environment doesn't exemplify the non-flashy job. So instead of like being an influencer, a pop star, like a janitor, I hold janitors to the highest standard personally because
You ever had to clean up after somebody?
they have to do a job that nobody's willing to do. And I think like jobs like teachers, janitors, I'm trying to think of another job, trash man, like the handyman, like jobs that aren't glorified.
Trash man get there.
No, but what I'm saying is like it's not flashy, it's not glamorous, but it's good, earnest living.
Yeah.
And if the paycheck is able to fulfill all your needs, literally pay all your bills, pay your rent or mortgage, car note, monthly car insurance, all these things. If your pay is able to comfortably do that and you have some money left over to do some other things, I think that's a great life.
I would say everyone wants to live a free life because everyone's sold in a free life. But what you're talking about is peace of mind. No one sold real peace of mind. Right, as long as your bills are paid.
As you get older, peace of mind is everything.
Yeah. When you don't have to worry about your bills for the next month, bro, that's a different feeling.
It's peace of mind is and it's that dichotomy that like as you get older, how much you appreciate it more. Because as you're young, peace of mind ain't on the top of your list. It's maybe bagging this girl, bagging that dude, living this crazy shared experience that every other person might be doing and you want to join in. But as you get older, just having the peace of mind goes so far. Mm-hmm. And I think people naturally get to that point where they realize that. So yeah, like I think peace of mind is unparalleled. And
I feel like people don't really realize that. I feel like it takes a certain level of growth. Maybe the people in your circle realize that because you're around a wiser crowd. But I think it's very common where you still have a lot of people who, if they don't accomplish their dreams, they just give up.
But
you know what I mean?
Like I wanted to be a doctor when I was a kid, like a medical surgeon. I realized I don't have the hand-eye coordination to be a surgeon because I got shaky hands. So, that sucked when I came to that realization. But I'm not gonna, at least personally, I'm not gonna push something that I know I'm physically limited and can't do. So I think when it comes to that, I also feel like it's like a saying in Nigeria and in Trinidad and Jamaica. It's like you can't, like, if somebody isn't gonna listen to advice, life will teach them.
Oh,
yeah.
Those who don't fear.
Yeah. Yeah, like
my mom used to say that.
Yeah, like there was something similar like that my mom used to say, but it's just like life experiences will teach people what they need to know. I think it should teach them, but it also depends on the person. Some people won't learn, and that's just.
I think it's a little bit of both. Yes, it also depends on the person. Some people won't learn until life gives them absolutely no choice, right? And at the same time, the things our parents teach us, some of them are important. A lot of them are important and applies. Some of them don't apply because the time and location is unfortunately different.
Yeah, that's true. I just think when it comes to the quitting, I feel like I understand it's a little different, but it's kind of like back in my day kind of thing, generational thing. It was kind of frowned upon because it was like you gave it your all until you couldn't. But it feels like now it's like you fail once. That's it.
Before we leave, I'm going to say one thing that might get me in trouble. Compared to the other basketball players in the NBA, I don't think Kobe had talent. I think he just worked harder than everybody else.
I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Because I feel like a lot of people will say
not like
no talent.
premise.
Yeah.
Every person in the NBA is more talented than
100%. That's why I said. That's why I
99%
said
of the
compared to the
people
NBA.
in the world.
Yeah.
But
Because I've listened to him speak. He's like, I would practice.
Yeah, and I've listened to
Yeah.
I'm what my brother will call Kobe Bryant hater. But the thing was, like, I respected Kobe's grind and tenacity and his competitive spirit. And I understood where he's coming from, where he's like, I may not be as talented as XYZ, but if I worked hard enough to match that talent to a certain degree, because you can only do so much realistically. But he optimized everything he could do to the limit.
Yeah, because he's like, these guys practice 2 times a day. I'm practicing 5. I wake up, I practice. I have breakfast, I rest, I practice. I have lunch, I go back to practice. I'm like,
it's like one of my favorite Kobe Bryant. Like, it kind of encapsulates kind of like the failure thing, but that random Nike commercial where Kanye West was like talking about all his success, and he was like, more. And he was like, "What do you mean?" And
how can I be greater than what I already am?
And he's like, "Yeah, just be."
Can you be a different mindset or the same beast or something?
Yeah, something like that. And it's meme-ish, but it's very telling of his mindset. And like Kobe Bryant failed a lot.
But people don't see that because he's Kobe Bryant.
And any successful person will tell you they fail. Most successful people. I don't want to speak for people who haven't, experienced setbacks and got to where they got to.
I remember. Sorry. Finish.
No, it's just like I feel like more successful people should share their failures with others, because people will get better from that. And
well, it depends. It depends. Because, I remember when I only had $10 in my bank account, people are going to see that and think that you're condescending. Right? Even though what you're probably reading.
But most people got to get out their way, because most people at some point in their life only had X amount of money in their bank account. You know what I mean? I feel like that's more relatable to people. And I think, personally speaking, I relate to people who will be willing to be vulnerable to show their failures and their successes, obviously, because it shows me that they understood that nothing is perfect and they had to grow from their mistakes.
And that's the whole point. I think that's the whole point of this channel, really. You don't see the guy who's crying in his car after he just failed his 5th job interview, right? You don't see the person who has to come home and tell his wife, I got fired from work today. Right? Or his wife has to tell him she got fired from work today.
And they gotta waddle through that situation.
They gotta
figure it out.
Like, all of that is tough. And it takes an emotional strain on any individual. And I feel like as men we have to carry that and still go out there and put on 100%.
It sucks. It sucks because it seems unfair, and I've talked to my therapist and some people like you, Matt, and some others about it. It's just one of those kind of unwritten rules of society that most men, not all men, have to carry that burden and still navigate their way with their internal struggles on top of the stuff. And I understand kind of the plight that some men have, and I really think it all comes down to what kind of community and foundation you have, because I think people who are willing to hold you accountable for stuff you do and vice versa builds the character that gives you, I think, the strength to kind of navigate those situations. Obviously, certain situations may not be unnavigated, like you can't navigate through, but I feel like having that support in the background does that. So I agree. Like, I think men need to talk more honestly, and I think you shouldn't shame another man for being vulnerable, because I think people are gonna cry because it just might be a lot, and they don't have the tools to handle that. And trying to, I kind of equipped it to my mindset in IT. If I have a problem, what kind of tools are you going to provide me to solve the problem? If I know these tools exist, what do I need to do to get access to these tools to get the problem resolved? So Yeah, I think speaking as a black man, I think black men should talk more openly about what they're feeling. I think we shouldn't judge, like, the whole, like, like how it's frowned upon to show emotion because it's like you're being seen as weak. And it's like, to a certain extent, yeah, but it's just like that's also natural. Like, if something bad, really bad happens, I'm going to cry. I shouldn't be ashamed for crying that something bad happened. So I think, like, as a culture of men, we gotta reevaluate that kind of stuff and only like have some space to allow people to grow and get better.
You got to be comfortable seeing another man vulnerable and saying, "I got you, brother."
Yeah. So, or I messed up and I need some help. Can you help me?
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff. Yeah. Wholeheartedly agree.
All right. Well, before we leave, you have any additional messages for our audience?
I got too many.
You got
I would say for young people, use your brain and think for yourselves. I think that critical thinking is a trait that pretty much makes the world go round. Absorb, read your information, verify your information, and do what you want with your information from there. Don't blindly accept everything as gospel. Don't be afraid to question things, but when you question things, go about a way of getting information that will answer your question. And if not, if you can't get that information, you may know somebody who does. I think researching and making informed decisions does wonders for everybody. So, critical thinking. Yeah. Yeah, that's all I got.
Well, thanks everyone. If anything that we said resonated you, any part of this conversation, drop a comment below. Let us know what it was. We can elaborate on this further. This is a conversation I feel like we can go on the whole day about.
Yeah.
Failure is a very common thing in every community, not just ours. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and see you next time.
Peace.